1985, my very first memory in life was my dad. He picked me up and he plopped me on his bed and he looked me in the eye and he said, "Elliot, I love you and I love your brother, but it's just not working out anymore for your mom and I." I didn't know what that really meant, but I knew it wasn't good. Later that night, my dad came into my room. He sat on my bed, and I reached over to my big pile of stuffed animals, and I pulled out my favorite. It was Wile E. Coyote from the Roadrunner series. And I handed it to my dad, and I said, "Daddy, I want you to have this so you don't forget about me." And the next day, my mom took me to Country Acres Daycare, a totally new experience for me. I didn't know what was going to happen. Later in the day, I saw the kids were milling around towards the windows, and I thought, okay, this is pickup time. But I didn't know who was picking me up. But down the long gravel and dirt driveway, I saw that big moving truck that he had just moved out of the house with pulling down the driveway, and I was so excited. And he came down the driveway, and he jumped out of the truck, and I ran over, and I gave him a huge hug. And we got into the truck, and he said, "I'm going to take you back to the place with my new apartment." And before he did that, he turned on the radio, and the number one song at that time started playing. "Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me." And even in my 4-year-old brain, I thought, okay, this is going to be all right. So we went back to my dad's apartment, and he showed me around. And he said, "Are you hungry?" And I said, "Yeah." So we went into the kitchen, and he opened up the freezer, and he pulled out a big tray of chicken Parmesan frozen, and he put it in the oven. And then he reached into the cupboard, he pulled out a saucepan, and he put it down on the stove. And he pulled out a big can of white potatoes, and he dumped it into the saucepan. And then he reached into the fridge and grabbed a big vat of fake butter, and he scooped it out, and he plopped it in there, and he heated this up for about 30 minutes. And then we ate this meal for the first of what would be literally thousands of times. My dad did the best that he could with what he had, but he was a new single dad. A few days later, I went to my mom's house, and now she is a single working mom, and she came home from work tired, exhausted, no motivation. She didn't have the energy to do the home cooking that she had done before. And so she reached into the cupboard and pulled out a can of SpaghettiOs and heated that up in the microwave. And my brother and I loved that stuff. It was delicious. But these canned meals and frozen meals started to form the foundation of my beliefs around nutrition. So fast forward 20 years later, I'm a high school science teacher, and I come back from work and I sit on the couch, I turn the TV on, and I fall asleep. Day after day, week after week, month after month, I'm coming home and falling asleep. Instead of being productive around the house, taking the dog for a walk, exercising, I'm completely out of energy. And I wake and I think to myself, what the hell's going on? Why is this happening? And eventually I look down at the number on the scale and I realize I'm approaching obesity. And I have to do something about it. Unfortunately, at the same time, I was also at a crisis in my career. I did not enjoy teaching high school anymore. I enjoyed teaching, so I started to look for other options. And I looked up the word teacher, and it comes from the Latin word doco, which is also where we get our modern word doctor from. And I thought, okay, my grandfather's a doctor. I could be a doctor. I'm still teaching as a doctor. And I really need a doctor to help myself. I needed to be my own doctor. So I left teaching. I moved across the country, and I started a brand new career. And through the stress of all of those things, the number on the scale continued to go up. But thankfully, I learned what causes people to gain weight. And I started to implement those things into my own life. And the weight came off. And I got my energy back. I wasn't falling asleep in the middle of the afternoon anymore. And then I started to look around, and I saw family members, immediate family members, my brother, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my aunt, were suffering from other chronic conditions like chronic pain, anxiety, depression, PTSD, diabetes, heart disease, dementia. And I thought to myself, goodness, my family could benefit from this root cause approach that I took for myself with my weight and energy. In all of my family members, I saw them losing not only quality of life, but quantity of years. My grandmother lost a battle with Alzheimer's at an early age. And then 9 years ago, this coming Tuesday, I got a phone call that changed my life forever. I was visiting with family. In fact, I spent the entire day with my brother, his family, his 4 kids, and his wife, and we had an amazing time. And then we went to visit my father-in-law because it was his birthday, so we went out to dinner, and when we came back to his house, we were packing up, getting ready to go, and the phone rings, and it's my mom, and she's frantic. "Elliot, you have to go to the hospital. Zach hung himself." So at this point, I'm shaking. I can't barely move. We jump in the car. My wife has to drive the 45 minutes to the hospital. And on the way, I have to stop and wake up my dad and tell him that his baby boy hung himself. So we get to the hospital, and we rush into the ER, and behind a plate, bulletproof glass window, the clerk asks me what we need. And I tell her, "We're here to see Zachary Hirshorn." She types it into the computer, and then she looks up at me, and the expression on her face told me everything I needed to know. They took my dad and I back into the trauma ward, where I saw my brother's lifeless body laying on a gurney, rope burns clearly visible on his neck. Not 30 days later, I was at a medical conference where I learned about research that was being done for veterans with anxiety and depression and PTSD, where they were using a root cause functional medicine approach that was helping to reduce anxiety and depression and PTSD and suicidal tendencies. And I was pissed. Why the hell didn't my brother have that? But I soon channeled that energy into focus on helping other people. I truly believe that if my family members had had a root cause approach available to them, not only would they have had better quality of life, but more quantity of years as well. When I met Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he told me that if you want to change the healthcare system, you have to eliminate chronic disease. And the missed opportunity in my family and my own personal journey has been driving me to do just that in my practice, transforming lives by identifying and addressing the root causes of chronic disease. And that's what motivates me daily to share this message as far and as wide as I can, including here today at the New York Academy of Medicine and in my best-selling book, Healthy from the Inside Out. When I interviewed New York Times best-selling author Joel Osteen, I asked him, "What's the most important thing you've ever learned about health?" He said, "It's easier to maintain your health than it is to regain your health." And these words are incredibly profound. And so I encourage you, as you leave here today, ask yourself, how can I today be healthy?